Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to try and avoid the buzzwords, but stronger together is something we live by. So very glad to be here. I want to start off by congratulating Dr. Nick and his team on connecting the dots and putting us together in the room. I found the earlier sessions very inspirational. So the future of leadership is fully dependent on the future of sustainability. And that's why I thought we'd bring some of these young leaders, and it's a privilege to facilitate the session. So because sustainability and ESG, I mean, everything we've spoken about earlier, job creation, skills, SME growth, is all dependent on how we prioritize the environmental, social, and governance factors. So let me tell you a little bit about our panel and their portfolios. So, because ESG is still pretty new to a lot of people. So, representing the FNB Sustainable Finance and ESG Advisory Team, Surisha, I'm going to leave the academic qualifications out, I hope you don't mind. So, Surisha is the sustainability lead for the impacted sectors in FNB Commercial, and she's focused on client solutions as clients migrate to a more sustainable world. We're going to go into some of that, what that means. And Tsepo represents the RMB Sustainable Finance and ESG team.
Yes.
And although Tsepo here is a banker, he's actually a chemical, I found his bio quite interesting. He's a chemical engineer, and he started life in the petrochemical industry and joined us on the Class Off program.
Yeah.
And since joining the RMB Sustainable Finance and ESG Advisory Team, Tsepo provides technical expertise on green hydrogen and renewable energy initiatives. And his experience extends to sustainability-linked loans and carbon financing. I've got a question or two on hydrogen.
Yes.
Hydrogen, we can maybe share that. But let's kick off. So great to be here, and maybe to kick off, Tsepo, for organizations to be future fit, there is a need for all leaders and boards to be prepared for sustainability and that journey. What does sustainable leadership mean to you?
Yeah, thanks for that. I think in looking at these things, especially when you look at sustainability and ESG, there's also a lot of acronyms and buzzwords that are thrown around. And with that, we've seen a lot of resistance towards ESG, but I think sometimes it's education and a lack of fundamental understanding of how these things work. So if you look from a business perspective, so one of the principles in accounting is a going concern. Will the company still be there and be able to fulfill its financial obligations? So sustainability fits onto that. So how I usually explain this to people is leave the sustainability and ESG elements outside. If you're looking for an energy source right now, it so happens that solar PV energy is the cheapest form of energy. So from a going concern perspective, you would actually, for reducing OPEX, that would be the energy source that you look for. It so happens it's green. So if you look at these type of things, it's merging the fact that as organizations, you need to look at your financial sustainability, but also your impact on the environment and on society. And that is the basis of, sustainability. So the leadership comes into the fact, appreciation the fact that as corporates, we have an impact on a society and on the environment we find ourselves in. And therefore, we need to be transparent in how we operate. We need to report on our footprint, both on the environment and then on social. But however, we also need to govern these organizations properly. Sure. And it speaks to governance and credibility on what we communicate, because there's a lot of scrutiny now on what's being published by corporates. So we need to be credible, and we need to provide information in a transparent manner. And I think the important thing is we need to collaborate. So what we found, especially in the sustainability space, one organization cannot be the hero. But together, when we bring our respective skill sets, and we in conversations with corporates, what we find with execs is usually when you find a board or an exco, the CFO runs by themselves, the sustainability person runs by themselves, the legal team runs by itself. But what you're finding with sustainable finance is those teams are having to work together, because the commitments that they make have implications on the financial performance, have implication of what's communicated, and there's legal things that are involved. So it's creating that sort of synergy also on board level.
Perfect. Thanks, Tsepo. You reminded me, I was going to share. So I don't think ESG is or sustainability is a competitive edge for any company. It's a collaborative effort. We need all of SA Inc.
Yeah.
to play along. And we'll talk a little bit about data integrity.
Yes.
And we've got Belinda here to balance the bankers.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about benchmarking. But maybe, Sarisha, next to you, coming from a CFO finance background, how are CFOs embracing this ESG journey?
So I think, Zach, sustainable strategies, we know it can lead to value creation in businesses. So an increase in your top line growth, cost savings that Sepo mentioned, and an increase in productivity. So I think it's really important then for CFOs to actually include sustainable leadership as part of their role. So in a former life, I was part of finance and part of reporting. So looked at results across our 10 subsidiaries across Africa, and come end of the month, it didn't matter which country the CFO was from, the first thing they would look at was their operating expenses. So including sustainable practices such as water efficiency, energy efficiency, solar, we know that that can actually add to operational efficiencies. It leads to reduced resource consumption, and that can lead to, of course, cost savings. So again, as Sepo mentioned, there's a double impact here. We know that the cost reduction in cost savings can lead to greater financial value, but also the reduced resource consumption, we know that's good for the environment. There's quite an interesting TED talk by Paul Gilding, and he talks about the fact that the earth is full. If we actually continue at our current rate of resource consumption, we'll actually need 1.5 Earths more. So really, at the moment, we're actually burning through our natural capital. Second point I'd like to make here is around access to capital. So again, we know sustainable companies have greater access to capital. Coming from the financial industry, we know that financial services and investors, they look for that long-term stability in the balance sheet. And sustainable practices can help achieve that and can actually also lead to lower borrowing costs. And I think the last one I just want to touch on is data. So having access to transparent, clear data, we know that that's really important for decision making. As a CFO, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. And we're seeing now there's this increase in need for non-financial and financial data points. And again, reporting typically sits in that finance function. A few months ago, we saw IFRS announcing new sustainability disclosure standards. And the aim of this is really to have a global baseline, to have standardization, to increase comparability and transparency. So it's quite important then that the CFO gets close to this, ensures that their teams are upskilled on these standards to make sure that they future fit and enhance reporting in their areas.
Thanks, Sarisha. So Belinda, you've been a specialist in consulting to global companies across sectors on sustainable strategies. And what I found interesting in your bio, you founded Sustainable SA. I don't know how you got this first off the mark. So a project that was sponsored by SAICA, I think there was SAICA in the house, and you won the SAICA Chairman's Difference Makers Award. So well done on that. So I think you've started your sustainability journey for a while now. So sustainability is a strategic priority for the C-suite. And it's a title I find very aspirational. The Chief Sustainability Officer, or CSO, is emerging as the sense maker in chief in the new sort of corporate world. How important is that role, and what is your take on the Chief Sustainability Officer?
Well, Zach, thank you for the very generous introduction. And hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure and a real honor to be here this afternoon. So I think previously we never had such a thing as a Chief Sustainability Officer. And studies have actually shown that this is a new role that's evolved from past disparate roles. And over the past 2 years, there have been more Chief Sustainability Officers appointed than there were over the past 5 years. So there's triple the number of Chief Sustainability Officers around the world now than there were 2 years ago. And it just shows how important sustainability has become to an organization. And in fact, today is International Day for Climate Action. And this is a worldwide movement that's been initiated by young people who are concerned about climate change and global justice. And yeah, so the topic is a really hot topic, and excuse the pun, hot. As we've seen, the world is becoming hotter and hotter, and our temperatures are rising. And that's why climate action is so important. And the standards that Sarisha mentioned, the IFRS standards, the S1 standard speaks to climate change and how do we address climate change and how do we report on that. And you know, there's the TCFD, which is the Task Force for Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. That's requiring everyone now to calculate their scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, and to make plans to become net zero by 2050 at least, and some organizations are targeting 2040. So there's really, you know, and this is a fundamental change to the entire way an organization operates. So the Chief Sustainability Officer has become a really important role, and they're now sitting on the senior executive committees, and they're working with the board, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders to develop the organization's sustainability strategy, to put goals and metrics in place, and to take the organization forward and help it achieve those goals and metrics. And it's making organizations do things they've never done before. So it's brand new projects, like you mentioned, the hydrogen projects. It's requiring engineers to get involved. We're having to re-engineer all of the business processes that we've seen because we were using too many resources. Like Sarisha said, we're burning up all of our resources. And we need to make them last longer. We need to look at circular economy principles. We need to look at regeneration of our resources. And this is why the role is so important. It's really sitting at the heart of the organization. And the CSO works closely often with the CEO, because the CEO knows a load of things, but they can't be specialists in every single area. And sometimes I like to think of the role of the CSO as herding cats, because it's bringing everyone from disparate functions together, and like conducting an orchestra, like playing a piece of music, has to bring all these people together beautifully to play beautifully so that the organization is a going concern, like Chipa spoke about, and it is sustainable into the long term. So yeah, the role is really, really becoming something in the spotlight. Like
we're going to put it on the short list. Any takers? I mean, I think a lot of the guys in the audience here qualify. So Tsepo, innovation and tech is big for us at First Rand. And we know we've spoken a lot about data analytics and advanced analytics. But maybe you can give us an example of how tech innovation can contribute to a more sustainable future.
Yeah. So I think one of the important things is, I think that the point was made that you cannot improve or work on something you don't measure. So one of the, I think, important inputs into especially any sustainability strategy or initiatives is the understanding of your performance or your footprint. So, and this is where, for example, tech around data is quite important, as to calculating your carbon footprint, calculating your water consumption, and also your workforce, the number of employees you have, the training, their well-being, and all of those things are quite important, because once you have that, you have some form of a baseline as to where you are sitting, because from there, then you can start looking forward into some form of strategies or points of improvement. And so that's talking around data tech, but we're also seeing that technology with respect to innovation around improving things. So you mentioned conversations around hydrogen, so that speaks into the energy space. And I mean, we've seen it a lot, even in the country, happening where the debates that are happening around energy are almost an either or in terms of technology. So how we look at it is we look at it from an energy triangle. So especially when you talk about energy, the first thing is it's access and security. And once you secured access and security, you then also have to take into consideration environmental sustainability. And then from there, you need to speak about economic development and growth. So any technology, any means of strategy that you come up with needs to balance the 3 points into that triangle. And we've seen a lot of technologies that are coming through that are ensuring that all those 3 elements are taken into consideration, and hence the conversation around the energy mix as well. Localization of some of these technologies, beneficiation of some of the minerals to support these technologies. So that's how we're seeing the technology space playing out, both from a data perspective, but also from an equipment perspective.
I was going to stay with tech and data, but for my personal view, maybe not the chemical engineering version of green hydrogen.
Yes.
I read a little bit and it said extraction of water molecules. I stopped there.
Yes.
So but can you dumb it down for us? Can you
Yes.
simplify it for us?
So green hydrogen, there's actually more than 7 shades of hydrogen when it comes to hydrogen production.
I wanted the simple version, Seppo.
So the easiest way to understand green hydrogen, so there's already hydrogen in the markets. So green hydrogen it's with how it's produced. So green hydrogen is literally the production of hydrogen using a renewable source. So if you either using solar or wind to split water, you literally split water into hydrogen and oxygen. So that hydrogen, because it comes from a renewable source and a renewable energy source, it becomes green. There's other shades, but literally that's it for green.
Create hydrogen in a clean way.
In a clean way.
Got you. Thanks for that. So keeping with data, so Belinda, I did say we want to chat about data integrity. So data is a big challenge at the moment, and especially we'll get a little bit into it on industry standards, but how can tech play a role here in terms of data integrity?
Yeah, that is a big question. Sustainability data integrity is a big problem. Firstly, sustainability data doesn't always exist in organizations, and it has to be created from scratch. So it means that, for example, when you're using water, I'm just going to give a simple example, you need to put a meter to measure how much water you're using and then link that into your systems. And, to make sure that that information flows seamlessly and is accurate from the point that it's created to the point where it gets reported on takes quite a bit of work. What we've seen is that a lot of Excel spreadsheets flying around the place. And, it's taking those Excel spreadsheets and actually using technology to create or to build or implement a sustainability management solution that can measure your sustainability metrics on all of the dimensions of sustainability. So looking at the economic, the environment, the social, and even the governance element of it. So you can even quantify and measure governance in a sustainability management solution. And here, because now of these reporting standards and because of the investor spotlight around sustainability and ESG, and all the external stakeholders, I mean our youth, the future generations, everyone's paying attention to sustainability reports now. And they're pulling apart the data and they're saying, are you really going to achieve these targets? And why did you state this in the previous year, but now suddenly it's not in your reporting in this year? And that's something that the reporting standards is going to address. And that's why data integrity is just so important. And using technology is the way to go about solving for data integrity issues. Because if I had to sit and question a large global listed on their sustainability metrics and pull data together in Excel spreadsheets, there's bound to be errors along the way. But if I use a system with APIs and I link it into their meters and into their subsystems and I feed it into my system, it's seamless, it's efficient, and it leads to data integrity. And now especially there's assurance that's required over sustainability metrics and reporting, and that's why you need to get the data right, because it can actually end up being very, very expensive to get your data right. And then what happens when you've got the data wrong? It ends up leading to reputational loss. And I don't even want to start speaking about greenwashing. In the past, a lot of organizations got away with making these sweeping statements about actions they were taking to address climate change and to make their organization sustainable, but nothing was ever tangibly done or implemented, and no real money was spent on initiatives. And now with this whole spotlight on sustainability and ESG and data, it's become ever more important to actually measure what you're speaking about and to meet those goals and to manage the meeting of those goals. So data integrity is really important, and we can't do it without using technology, because the metrics are not just rands and cents anymore. There's scientific measures, there's human value measures. All of these things require different ways of visualizing and looking at data. Using artificial intelligence to do predictive scenario analysis when it comes to running climate change scenarios through your organization is really important. We can use blockchain, which helps with our supply chain integrity and visibility into what's happening in the supply chain, which has become really important. Using predictive analytics, like I spoke about, using advanced algorithms, using historic data to predict what's going to happen in the future. We need to know these things because sustainability is all about what we're doing now and how it impacts on the future of our organization.
Yeah, so Tracy, we good? Are we there? We're almost there. Okay. We need to wrap up. So maybe staying data integrity, we'll avoid greenwashing. I was trying to avoid greenwashing, but maybe parting shots. Seppo, RMB's efforts at the moment on their sustainable journey. Anything you want to share? Industry standards, benchmarking?
Yeah. So I think from an RMB perspective, what we are doing is we're positioning ourselves as a trusted partner when it comes to a company's corporate sustainability strategy. So we support you from the moment you are still contemplating your strategy, still trying to come up with a baseline. So we work a lot with ESG advisors and sustainability advisors to take you through that journey all the way to a point where you have a credible strategy that you need to finance. And our finance products are varied. We can do debt financing, we can do equity financing, and we also do advisory as well, and we can also partner you. So if you're working on something and we know of a technology provider or we know of someone who's done that before, we can partner you just to ensure that in your sustainability journey, you are successful, because if you are successful, we are all successful.
Spot on. Copy paste for FNB, or you want to add anything, Sirisha?
So I'll definitely add. So at FNB, we see sustainability as a service. So we also view ourselves as trusted sustainability partners, and it's really about helping our customers along their transition journey. So lending still remains core. It's a core function of us, but we actually see opportunity to be more than a bank. And so we're going through our own transition at the moment, moving from transaction to advisory. So we also provide integrated advice, sustainable finance solutions. For us, energy is quite critical. It's about servicing our current customer needs at the moment. And so we have quite a few energy solutions that we've rolled out. And again, for us, collaboration is key. We cannot move forward if we don't work and partner together. And so we work quite closely with RMB. We work quite closely with Sustainable DNA, with consultants, because if we do want to rewire the economy, we all have to work together.
Thanks, Sirisha. Last word from Belinda on Sustainable DNA.
I'll be very brief. So copy and paste on the collaboration being key parts. And I feel that volunteering our time is also very important. So we do volunteer. We do sit on the ESG Exchange Technical Committee, designing playbooks for organizations so that they can design their own sustainability strategy and report on it effectively. So volunteering, playing a part in the community, all very important to Sustainable DNA besides the consulting work that we do. Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
TM Global Media, going beyond borders.